Hi, my name is Janice Law, and I'm a member of the Young Ophthalmologist Committee. And I have here Dr. Mark Melson, who is an oculoplastics and orbital reconstructive surgeon in Nashville. And before ophthalmology, he was an accountant and consultant. We just finished the Young Ophthalmologist program where Dr. Melson spoke with other ophthalmologists about finances for an MD. So, Dr. Melson, thank you for coming today.
Thanks for having me.
I'd like to start with, if you would share with the audience, what's the most important part of a young ophthalmologist's financial plan?
I think without any question at all, it's most important to have a plan for disability. We, as ophthalmologists, are probably 3 to 5 times more likely to become disabled in our career and unable to do the job we love than we are to actually die. And so having a good disability plan in place will protect your income in the event that you have a repetitive use injury, carpal tunnel syndrome. I ran into a friend here yesterday who had broken his arm and can't operate for a while. And protecting that income for the long run is by far the most important thing.
Thank you. What mistakes do you think young ophthalmologists make with regards to finances?
I think it's not just ophthalmologists. I think physicians in general, you have this pent-up demand oftentimes because you've been a student for so many years, you've not made really much money at all for a long, long time, and you go from one day making close to minimum wage as a resident or fellow to then making quite a bit of money, and there's this big tendency in your first few years to overspend because you think now, hey, I'm a successful ophthalmologist, and a big mistake there is you then lose those years of saving and planning where that money could be growing for you for the future.
Mm-hmm. So a young ophthalmologist probably will be making $50,000 in training on average, and maybe their first paycheck will be about, let's say, $200,000. What should they do with their first paycheck?
Well, I think the better question is probably what you shouldn't do with your first paycheck, because if you think about it, that first paycheck's going to have more zeros than you've probably ever seen, and that's well and good, but you have to remember, as soon as you finish training, for most people, the loan bills now come due. You need to start where you've been in a spending mode or just kind of living month-to-month mode. You need to start saving for retirement. So what you don't want to do is run out with that first paycheck and think that you can buy the nicest new car or the biggest new house in town, and all of a sudden you're anchored into a job that you can't leave. You've got these golden handcuffs on. You have a lot of nice things, but you can't leave, even if you don't like your job. And we know statistically a lot of new physicians, ophthalmologists included, don't always stay in that first job that they get. And the more you've committed yourself and overspent at first, the harder it is to leave, and then you end up in a situation you may be unhappy. So I would just advise people not to buy a lot of luxury goods and do that sort of thing right off the bat, but to get a good financial plan in place.
Thank you. We really appreciate your pearls on financial health. If you could give our young ophthalmologist one action item to do right now for a young ophthalmologist that's in training and a young ophthalmologist that's in their first 5 years of practice, what would that be?
I think for the young ophthalmologist in training, I already mentioned it, you want to look into own occupation disability insurance. This means that if you decide to become a retina surgeon or an oculoplastic surgeon and you are no longer able to be a retina surgeon or an oculoplastic surgeon, even if you can do other jobs, that your income is covered. So people think disability, they think total disability, you're in a wheelchair, completely unable to work. That's not what we're talking about. It's if I'm unable to do surgery, I'm protecting that part of my income, but I could still perhaps be a medical ophthalmologist and work. And that's what disability insurance is about. And the younger you are, the healthier you are when you get it, it's going to be much less expensive than if you wait 10 years down the road, 5 years down the road. Mm-hmm. And then as far as when you first get into practice, I think the biggest thing is to get discipline with regard to saving for the future, because you cannot finance your retirement. Nobody's going to loan you money to move to Florida and live out your golden years. So you, in almost all cases now, you're the one who's going to be responsible for that. And I can assure everyone watching that the federal government programs are not going to support your lifestyle in retirement like you may want. So a disciplined savings plan for retirement is probably the most important thing you can get, because the value of compound interest or compounding capital gains over time, you can't emphasize enough. If you defer your savings 5, 10 years, you lose out on an enormous amount of money.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me.